Call to order this meeting of the James City County Board of Supervisors for a business meeting. Mr. Stevens, please call the roll.
Mr. Hippel? Here. Ms. Null?
Present.
Ms. Larson?
Here.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Here.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Here.
All present.
Okay, we have no presentations. We have a consent calendar, so I'm ready to read. Okay. Today's consent calendar consists of the following items. Number one, acceptance of funds, $1,397 federal asset forfeiture program. Number two, Colonial Community Corrections, storage, relocation, and equipment needs, $22,700. Number three, contract award, $164,599, James City County Recreation Center meeting rooms, HVAC replacement. Number four, dedication of the streets extension in the Greenmount Industrial Park. Number five, dedication of the streets in sections 1 and 2 of Liberty Ridge subdivision. Number six, dedication of the streets in section 2 of the Monticello Woods subdivision. Number seven, dedication of the streets in sections 4, 5, and 6 of the Green Springs West subdivision. Number eight, grant award, $18,600, Department of Motor Vehicles Alcohol Enforcement. Number nine, grant award, $36,366, Department of Motor Vehicles Police Traffic Services. Number 10, grant award, $76,945, 4 for Life Return to Localities Fund. Number 11, grant award, $218,250, Virginia Community Flood Preparedness Fund. Number 12, grant award, $437,982, Virginia Department of Fire Programs Fund. Number 13, contract award, $206,580, James City County Marina Boat Ramp Tending Pier Replacement. Number 14, minutes adoption. And number 15, open space land acquisition, 1821 Jamestown Road. And I will look to the board and if there's anyone wishes to pull any item, or if not, I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Mr. Stevens, call the roll, please.
Mr. Hippel? Aye. Ms. Null?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I would note that in the consent calendar being one of the more mundane things that people may not look at totally, today we just approved $788,143 worth of grant money, which is significant. And for that, we have to thank our staff for all the work and effort that they put into it to get that.
If I could also just thank staff, please. There was some dedication of streets in the Green Springs West subdivision. And this has been an ongoing project for many, many, many years that a lot of people in James City County, the government, helped with and have put in long, long hours. They know who they are and how much I appreciate them. And I also want to say an appreciation for the neighborhood who has unfortunately had a developer that left some issues, many issues there that are still, they're not all fixed, but working on it. But my thanks go to all of those involved. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. Okay, next we go to board discussions. LU 20-0002 Eastern State Parcel C Land Use Designation Change. And Morgan Reisinger is going to do the presentation.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The LU-20-0002 Eastern State Parcel C land use application was submitted during the 2045 Comprehensive Plan update to request a change of the designation from federal, state, or county land to mixed use. Proposed description language was developed during the 2045 Comprehensive Plan update and is included in the memorandum. Staff has also provided maps showing the land use designations and zoning districts of other properties in the area for your reference. Staff welcomes the board's discussion regarding the proposed land use designation change and description language. Staff will look to incorporate feedback received today and bring this item back to the board at its December 9th meetings. Thank you.
Questions? I will toss in my 2 cents if you just maybe get the discussion started. I would like to see the various options come back to us, and if we can, have that information given to us maybe by email well in advance of the meeting, and we will bring it back and discuss it at a I guess what's right now December is what you're looking at. I would like to see, I understand there are various different levels of mixed use that, are inherent in the plan that we could probably look at. Also, I'd like to have a good close look at the economic opportunity designation and see what various different options might be available for us to consider for that piece of property under that designation as well. So that's sort of the gist of the information I think we're looking for, so that we can have a better discussion and decide whether we want to take a look at doing a different than just a general mixed use, because typically what happens with mixed use is we get very little of our diversification of our economy. We get a token amount of something and a lot of housing. And right now that's of concern, I think, to a lot of us on the board. So any other comments that people would like to make, I would be please direct to staff.
Also, I remember when I was on the planning commission, we talked about this, and quite a few people came and spoke. The Newtown residents group came and spoke, and we got a letter from them. All of us did this time. And one of the things that we tried to not guarantee, but told them that we would not connect this property to Newtown. And they were afraid that Discovery Road was going to come all the way through, and they were going to have all this traffic and so forth. But that's exactly what's on this plan. Also, accessing two other roads in there, because I get really upset if there's only one road into anything, because I think it's a safety issue. So now that they're trying to talk about accessing Olive Drive, which is another residential road. So these are the concerns that I have. Plus, just looking at it, it's a lot of high-density residential. And you're going to just be putting all kinds of traffic on Discovery Road if it goes through there. Plus, they don't want to be part of it anyway, but that's neither here nor there. I don't think we can do anything about that. But those are my concerns, and Mr. Eisenhower and I have talked about that before, maybe trying to change the zoning so we get less residential, maybe more what we've got on Discovery Road to begin with, more doctor's offices, small lawyers' offices, whatever, smaller footprints, number one, because they could be higher, and just less residential back there, because I think if this is connected to Discovery, which is probably going to happen, it's going to create a lot of traffic. And that was just what I remember. We had already gone through this a couple of years ago with them, and nothing has changed, obviously. So just my comments.
I will offer one minor clarification, which you had noted the Olive Drive connection, and that was from that application submitted through the 2045 Comprehensive Plan Update. And when we got that feedback from the public about that secondary connection, that was removed from the request and wouldn't be part of what the description language is now. But I do take your point regarding the Discovery Park Boulevard connection.
Okay, thank you.
I think, Mr. Chairman, I just add that I agree that the thing that I'm most concerned about is that this become predominantly, overwhelmingly a residential proposal. In a lot of ways, I think that if we are really going to be true to the spirit of Newtown, it'd be much better if we could figure out some ways to incorporate some neighborhood commercial activities so that folks could be encouraged to walk in this area. It should be a very walkable kind of facility. And that we don't simply throw in a small strip mall as a way of saying, well, see, we did a mixed use here, that it should truly be mixed, and that it also should take into account the fact that some of the lands that we're dealing with here are quite sensitive environmentally, and that we can't lose sight of the need to protect those areas in whatever development plan emerges.
I think one thing we need to look at as well is, with the mixed use, we're going to really have to start looking at traffic concerns across the county. It's getting more and more difficult to get anywhere in the county now. And, we're going to have to start looking at if we can't get the roads to get through the county, then we need to do something different than what's been done up to this point, because we're really starting to get to the point where our roads are not going to handle much more than what we've got now. and just go out on a Saturday and ride through the community, and you'll see that our roads won't keep up. And of course, we're not gonna get any help from, the state usually. It's money's tight for everybody. The thing we tried to pass, and hopefully we might be able to pass it in the, coming meetings is, adding that extra 3.3% to a penny for our secondary roads, which we need. In this project, the more residential we have in there, the more stress is gonna put on our roads. Not only our roads, our schools and everything else. So we need to find a balance for the citizens that are here and the ones that are coming, a balance between how much pays for what, so that it's not overwhelmingly residential in this area, because that's gonna cause more taxes for our citizens. And we've heard it more than one time, I'm tired of paying but so much tax. And even though we have one of the lower rates, it's still, it's still a lot to pay. So if anybody new comes into the community, we need to have a balance to where that's not putting a stress on the citizens that are here now paying the taxes. So we need to figure out on these land uses how to balance that. We won't get it 100% right, but we need to figure out how we can balance it better in the future. So I think transportation and a balance of a mixed use is gonna be what's gonna be key to this development.
Everybody said
Everybody
everything.
satisfied? Do we feel like you have the direction of what we're looking for, and that will come back to us at the December meeting? All right, will that be at the, I guess December, we're doing the work session and the meeting both at the same day, which, will it be part of, work session? Okay, very good. Thank you. Number 2 is our financial updates, FY 2025 year end and FY 2026 first quarter. Cheryl Holland.
Chairman, members of the board, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I'm Cheryl Holland. I'm the budget director for the county, and today I'll provide updates on the county's finances for fiscal year 2025, which was last year. It ended on June 30th, as well as through the first quarter of this fiscal year, FY 26, which ended on September 30th. This presentation will focus on the general fund, which covers the county's normal operations. And to start off, we'll review the county's general fund revenues for FY 25. Please note, these figures are still preliminary until the year-end financial audit is completed and presented to the board in December. On this slide, you'll see information on FY25 budgeted revenue, actual revenue, and prior year actual revenue, with a comparison of actuals between the two fiscal years. General property taxes is the county's largest revenue source, representing approximately 2/3 of total revenue. This category includes real estate and personal property taxes. Most of the increase here relates to real estate because FY25 was a reassessment year. Other local taxes includes sales, meals, and lodging tax, as well as business license taxes. Most of the revenues in this category experienced increases during FY25, with sales tax and business license taxes serving as the main drivers of the growth here. Licenses, permits, and fees include planning, zoning, and stormwater fees for permits and inspections. This category experienced a slight decrease for FY25. The use of money in property line, that reflects revenues that the county receives for renting property that the county owns. For example, the county leases certain land for cell tower usage. The increase for FY25 primarily relates to new leases or renewals entered into during the fiscal year. The increase in state and federal from the prior year was primarily due to an increase in state funding to assist with constitutional offices and other activities that are supported by the state, such as support for the police department. Charges for services increased primarily due to an increase in the use of Parks and Rec programs and other services provided by the county. And then that miscellaneous line primarily reflects property sales and refunds of prior year expenditures. Amounts vary in this category year to year based on particular situations in that time period. Lastly, on the fund balance line, you can see that the county used approximately $24.3 million of fund balance in FY25 for various purposes, including a $6.5 million tax credit given to taxpayers, a support for FY25 CIP and debt service of approximately $12.5 million, outstanding purchase orders from the end of FY24 of $1.7 million, support for Settlers Market improvements of $2.76 million, $500,000 for the purchase of property, and $287,000 for a one-time leave payout for staff. Uses of fund balance in FY24 were similar, but they did not include that tax credit and certain CIP support. The year-over-year change in revenues, excluding fund balance of $7.6 million, shown in red at the bottom of the screen, primarily relates to the real estate reassessments. Any questions on general fund revenues? Okay, moving on to expenditures. Again, based on preliminary figures, all of the departments finished the year under budget. Please note that the actual column shown here includes both expenditures incurred as well as any outstanding purchase orders. There were roughly 1.3 million of POs at the end of FY25, and those will carry forward into FY26 so that planned purchases can take place. Savings resulted in part due to debt service. The county issued a new borrowing in December of 2024 to support CIP projects, and due to timing, only one debt service payment was required for the year, but 2 payments were included in the FY25 budget. These debt service savings are included in the last 2 lines, the WJCC School Division and the transfers to other funds, because the borrowing was planned for both school and county projects. And also there were other savings that resulted from lower than anticipated personnel costs during FY25 and purchases that were not made due to changing department needs. The savings in the school division line also reflects schools' year-end savings for FY25, which the county's proportionate share was approximately $5.7 million. As part of the agreement in effect for FY25 with the schools, the county will retain 10% of the savings, or roughly $570,000, and the remaining 90% is committed back to the schools, so that's about $5.2 million. So that's expenditures for FY25. This current slide provides a quick recap, again using preliminary numbers. As you can see, general fund revenues are anticipated to exceed expenditures for FY25 by approximately $12.7 million, that first line in light blue. However, there are already planned uses for that surplus shown in the reserve section, including the amount of the school surplus that goes back to the school needs, about $5.2 million, CIP support of $4 million, and debt service support of $1.9 million. The amount that remains of that surplus, approximately $1.67, shown in light green, goes towards the county's unassigned fund balance. So what does this mean for unassigned fund balance at the end of FY25? At the bottom of the slide, you'll see a breakdown of impacts on unassigned fund balance during the year. To start off, the first line provides FY24 ending unassigned fund balance, which was $80.3 million. Based on current year activity discussed in the previous slides, we'll add that $1.67 million shown again in the light green. And we'll also add $230,000 of other types of fund balance that closed out to unassigned fund balance during the course of the year. The county also used fund balance during FY25, specifically from unassigned, that roughly $2.76 million that went towards settlers market improvements, as well as the $287,000 that went to the leave payout for staff. Our fiscal policies require that we maintain an unassigned fund balance that equals or exceeds 15% of general governmental expenditures. At the end of FY25, our fiscal policies would require roughly $47 million of unassigned fund balance to meet that 15% threshold. And factoring in the additions and uses of fund balance during FY25, our balance was $79.1 million, or roughly 25.1%. So that's a very healthy reserve. Over the last few years, we've utilized fund balance for one-time expenditures, such as to support CIP, and we've avoided using fund balance for operational needs because that creates an inherent budgetary imbalance, given that the expenditures would be ongoing without an identified source of recurring revenue. Going forward, we need to continue to be strategic about using fund balance to help us maintain a strong financial position and have funding for future significant expenditures. That is FY25. Moving on to FY26. Again, this is the first quarter. The same format has been used here with actual figures reflecting 3 months of revenue, July through September, for FY26 compared to actuals for the same time period of FY25. We're early in the fiscal year, so we haven't reached our main real estate and personal property tax due dates. And some of the revenue that we've received during the first 3 months of this fiscal year actually related to last fiscal year and has been accrued or moved back to FY25. Some of the differences shown here are related to timing, primarily that excise tax revenue. For FY25 quarter one, in that other local tax line, there were certain funds in FY25 that weren't processed until quarter two, even though they related to quarter one, but excise tax revenue for FY26 has been processed more timely. Other differences relate to one-time occurrences. The decrease in the use of fund balance for FY26 is primarily due to the planned uses of fund balance in FY25, including that $6.5 million tax credit given to taxpayers. The year-over-year change in quarter one, excluding fund balance, shown again in red at the bottom of the screen, primarily relates to increases in general property tax and other local tax revenue in the first quarter. Switching gears to the spending side of the budget, this slide shows activity for the first quarter of FY26. Again, please note that actuals includes expenditures incurred as well as outstanding purchase orders. If all expenses came in evenly during the course of the fiscal year, we'd expect to be about 25% of the budget utilized so far. But for quarter one, we're at 31%, with the last category, contributions and transfers, skewing the overall percentage. We'll talk about specific departments next. So this line graph reflects department spending in the blue line for the first quarter of the fiscal year compared to a 25% benchmark in that green line. For those areas tracking above 25%, it's important to note that not all expenses are incurred evenly during the year. For example, in financial administration, we are required to pay our annual insurance premiums in full at the beginning of the fiscal year. In addition, our annual audit takes place during the fall months, so most of the expenditures are incurred early in the fiscal year. In IT, most of our equipment maintenance and software contracts require full payment at the beginning of the fiscal year, so that's why you see that department at 41%. Contributions and transfers include support to outside agencies, most of which receive their funding at the beginning of the fiscal year. This also includes transfers to other funds, the majority of which are done in July. So again, that's why you see that category at 55%. Encumbrances can also cause a high trend because a substantial volume of purchase orders are encumbered at the beginning of the fiscal year in full and impact the budget at that time. These timing differences are normal and generally work themselves out during the course of the fiscal year. Any questions on department expenditures? That concludes my remarks on FY25 and the first quarter of FY26, and I'd be happy to respond to questions.
Questions?
I guess the one thing I would ask, Ms. Holland, is just what we're seeing in terms of sales tax revenues as we've moved into this new year.
So far, we've been seeing them holding steady or being slight increases compared to last year. So we've continued to see that, and we'll typically see those higher in the summer months, and then we'll see them pick up again as we get into the holiday season. So we'll continue to monitor those, but I will note that with sales tax, it's usually a 2-month lag because we do receive those from the state. We'll continue to provide updates on those.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
No other questions? Thank you. Okay, we move to the third item, draft policy to address data center facilities. Christy Parrish.
Afternoon, Mr. Chairs, members of the board. On September 9th, 2025, amendments were approved to the zoning ordinance to require a special use permit for data centers in locations zoned M2 General District. Under that adopted amendment, data centers are not permitted in any other zoning district. Previously, staff presented research regarding the variety of impacts, both positive and negative, of data centers. At the September 9th meeting also, the board directed staff to further develop a board policy to help mitigate those impacts. Accordingly, staff has drafted a policy that attempts to mitigate expected land use impacts of data centers. Staff has incorporated guidance from other localities, regulations, and other sources. The draft data center policy outlines the guidance expectations for land use applications, including general elements, including site-specific conditions, construction management and fiscal impacts, location, design elements, noise impacts, water consumption, and electricity consumption. While further advancements in technologies are unknown, the policy used as a guide document allows flexibility when new sustainable resources are implemented for these facilities rather than strict performance standards within an ordinance. Staff looks forward to your comments on the draft policy and will be here to listen on any other comments.
Comments?
Just a couple of things I'd like to know. At one point, it seemed as if there was some sense that there were relatively few places. In fact, maybe the suggestion was made by some that maybe the only one place to place data centers in the county. Does this draft policy now give a sense that there are more places that could be considered for data centers?
There are other areas that are zoned M2 that could be considered for data centers, as well as any possible rezoning that may, be in accordance with the comprehensive plan. So I believe that this draft policy is only for one specific area, but throughout the county.
I was a little concerned just because the size of some data centers we've seen around about the distance limitations that the policy provided. 250 feet doesn't really seem like that close, that far away from a residential unit, especially taking into account the fact that sometimes those residential units that do exist in proximity to manufacturing zoning is relatively low income housing, and there may be fewer protections built into the residential communities in those instances.
Sure.
What would the impact be of extending that barrier?
I don't think that there is any impact because since this is a policy, the individual cases will come to the board. And I think that the impact itself could be more visible for the board to make that decision. Just out of making sure that I'm understanding correctly, right now we have 400 feet of any occupied property and then 250 feet of any historical. Is that where
Right,
you were
okay.
speaking of? Okay. I just want to make sure.
Oh, thank you.
But
Yeah.
I mean, certainly if the board sees fit, you can certainly increase that number. But at the time, since it does require a special use permit and it's not performance standards, that would be subject to your review and approval based on that location.
Okay. I was glad to see that you had something in the policy proposal that required consideration of potential uses should data centers be replaced by some other kind of structures.
That was an issue that was brought up by the the Planning Commission as well as the Policy Committee, because as future advancements are unknown, and what happens if the data center and infrastructure does move out, then what do you do with such buildings? So it was important to them, and we concurred with it to make sure that we're further thinking just than the data center.
Right, right. And I would just sort of note for the public's information that there's been some recent news coverage about the increasing public opposition to the location of data centers for a variety of reasons, and one being the intrusive impacts that data centers as currently constructed or even in earlier iterations is causing. The other is in terms of the very high demand for energy at a time when energy costs are increasing, and the ability to meet the needs of energy are not necessarily keeping up. We're just seeing the cancellation of projects that were designed to try to improve the availability of power in the Commonwealth. So just note that those are issues that are likely to be with us as well. I know Henrico County received a lot of publicity by virtue of the fact that they were going to be using some of their revenues from data centers to fund affordable housing opportunities, and then they faced overwhelming opposition from their citizens about the proliferation of data centers in the county. So it is just something to keep in mind.
Sure.
Yeah,
I think they just pulled one.
yeah, they did.
I've heard both sides on the data centers. I don't know enough because I've never visited one. I'm wondering if we could have a field trip with the board and see what the noise, the level, maybe ride around and see what goes on so we can make a informed decision on our own as far as, if the data centers are worth being in James City County or not. And I know between that and the battery facilities as well, I know Dominion would probably help us with tell us where some of those are. And then I thought, we've got the upper end of the county, which might be some good spots, and the lower end of the county, there wouldn't be much in the middle of the county as far as that would go. But if we did that, would we not do something as far as a policy that if you could say put something over at BASF way back on the far part of BASF where there's not, near a neighborhood, and then could we in turn go, okay, the revenue we collect from this, a percentage would go to enhance the Grove community. And, if we're going to have something there, maybe we do something like that goes, okay, at an X amount, we'll put towards the community and maybe a grocery store or rec center or something, and the same with the upper end of the county. If we were to do something up there, maybe a percentage of that revenue would be for a certain area around that center, and it might help with the citizens, and that's why it's something to look at. I mean, if we ever decide to go that route, if we don't, well, we don't go that route, but it'll give the options and the ability to say, hey, a percentage of that can go to enhance the community that the data center's in.
I agree entirely with what Mr. Hipp was saying about the value of doing something like that. I don't think that we're currently being or have attracted interest of folks with data centers in terms of any real proposals out there. But it's certainly worth being prepared should such a case arise. And I think that there are some good opportunities, even if we did consider potentially some sites that might, for instance, give us access to the James River as part of the condition to provide the data center. But at this point, we're really speculating about the possibility because it has been something that a lot of localities have been wrestling with, and that we shouldn't necessarily assume that we'd be immune to that possibility.
One of my concerns was the water, that they use like 80,000 gallons a day of water. And I did read on your thing that you sent out to everybody that Albemarle County makes them do a closed system. And I think that's really important, even though we get water from Newport News or whatever. We got the river, maybe we can take that. And so the less impact they make on our county, I think the better. I think revenue's great, but if they're taking all other stuff and the amount of energy, the amount of electricity they use, and I also read some other counties, they bill them differently, and because they were getting lower rates on their electricity bills when the homeowners are paying the top rates. So that's another issue, and I've read a lot about it, and I think it's something that people are going to get upset about if they find out that they're paying a lower electricity rate and making more money while we're paying the higher rates.
And you do read a lot about that, and I would agree with the electricity and all that. There's no need in putting it on the back of our citizens if we, because the power rate's going up anyhow, constantly. The water thing, we might be able to look at SWIFT and redirect. If it's down in the, in that area, we might look at SWIFT and can we redirect the water that they're going to put in the aquifer years from now? Because evidently James City County is on the last of the list of that, but that was the last director, and I'll keep that little comment.
Except you let it go.
But and maybe we can redirect the SWIFT water into the facility and reutilize that water that's down there too. So, there's some options, but we need to figure out, will it work for James City County? And if it will it be a benefit and not a burden on our citizens? So thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I do think it would be beneficial to try to go see a data center or one or two, just to get some idea. I want to be real careful though about, and I know that there is a lot about the one area of the county because there is water, there, you know, it's on the BASF property is near the water. And so there's a lot that does make it, but I don't think we've invested necessarily in that area of our county the way we should. And in Supervisor McGlennon's district, we have the people that pay the most tax here, you know, Anheuser-Busch, Busch Gardens, and I know that John's done a lot, but I also know there's no but, and I also know though that community is very sensitive. They want to make sure that we are talking about, there's a lot of different areas as we've brought up, but just want to reemphasize that there possibly could be data centers. And it's very difficult because the revenue that my colleagues have, including that duck, my colleagues have talked about is because this is all over the Commonwealth. It can be a lot of revenue and you can do a lot with it, but it definitely has their challenges. And, you know, Loudoun's making a lot of money, but we're all going to have to end up providing a lot of electricity. So is that the right, you know, so I'm sure it's something at some point that we're going to have to struggle with. And so I do appreciate, this was a pretty quick turnaround.
It was very much a group effort.
Yeah, and I really do appreciate that. And so, but I think the more information we can man ourselves with, the better. But I very much appreciate you bringing this.
Thanks, Christie.
Also appreciate the hard work that went into this. I know it was a lot of effort, and appreciate the fact that you produced such a comprehensive report.
Effort.
I will echo that. As I've sat and read through this, it was very well detailed and thought out, and I really appreciate all the work that went into that. Basically, this is a discussion today. If the board is willing, we'll put this on our agenda for the next meeting to come back and approve, if you're ready to do that. Okay.
Is there anything that needs to be added?
Or any other things if you didn't?
And did I hear about a field trip? Maybe
Yes.
I can reach out to some of my colleagues and then get with county administration.
I think that would be a great idea for us. I know every time I go up to the VACO conference and we sit down and talk to our counterparts from Northern Virginia, there's some people who are very well educated in a lot of this, and I think we could make some good contacts about some places for us to go visit, and I think it would be very worthwhile for the board to maybe invest a day or you know, for a day trip or whatever to go take a look at that.
Yes, and we should add, VACO's also done numerous podcasts on data centers, including one with Julie Briskman, supervisor in Loudoun County, who talks about her experience. But on your LinkedIn profile now, you can say from roosters to data centers.
Right.
I cover it all.
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks, Christie.
Thank you, Chris. All right.
Okay.
We now move to an overview of the landscape ordinance. Paul Holt.
Thank you. I should have given this one to Christie as well. We could have gone a whole lot faster. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Good afternoon. Previously, you had asked for an overview and summary of the county's landscape ordinance, as well as some specifics on 2 previous land use cases. I'll start a little bit with some background and basis for the ordinance. You know, the idea for landscaping became a significant component of community character, going all the way back to the very first comprehensive plan adopted by the Board of Supervisors in 1975. Greenbelt roads, as they were called, were significant because they preserved our rural character, enhanced and improved community aesthetics, balanced out development with existing environment. Greenbelt roads as a term continued in comp plan goals, strategies, action items, and in other development-related documents until the 1997 update, when that term was updated to the current context of community character corridors. The 1991 public input survey is where we really started to see results indicating that the desire for roadsides to be left in their natural state and calls for enhanced landscaping required for development that is approved via a legislative application. Citizen support for preserving existing landscaping and enhanced landscaping to promote our rural, natural, and historical community character have continued through all subsequent updates to the comprehensive plan, and substantively, the current landscape ordinance has existed for 35 years now. The purpose and objectives of the landscape ordinance are all listed there. It's a lot of words. I'm definitely not going to read through them, but just scanning through, you'll note some of the more direct linkages to the previously mentioned comp plan goals and action items, as well as the citizen input received during all of those times. The landscape ordinance itself has specific requirements for plantings to be installed and existing landscaping to be protected at various locations around a development site. This includes landscaping and plantings adjacent to buildings, along the roadway, along side and rear property lines, within parking lots, and for screening. Screening, of course, can be applicable to objectionable features or for utilitarian elements of the built environment, and transitional screening is applicable between conflicting land uses, say along where property lines of commercial zoning and businesses are adjacent to residential. The ordinance also has a lot of supporting details regarding what is needed to meet the landscape standards, including ensuring the plan is designed by an appropriate design professional, encouraging the use of native trees, establishing minimum sizes for new trees and shrubs, and requiring a diversity of plantings to include both overstory and understory trees, and use of both deciduous and evergreen varieties. An important element of the ordinance that has existed since that 1990 adopted ordinance is the requirement for the property owner to keep up and maintain plantings required by the ordinance as part of any development approval. This code section helps to ensure that the benefits of these community character elements and ordinance requirements remain over the life of the development. The board also asked and wanted to know a little bit more information about what flexibility exists in the ordinance. Listed most of those items here on this slide and the next one, and it's very common for landscape plan designers to incorporate many of these elements into their plans. Some of these include having staff having the ability to consider modifications, say to when an adjustment to planting mixtures or densities is needed. Substitutions is typically going to be for designs that have a discernible theme or architectural style, and then transfers, or being able to move things around the site as may be needed. Every single piece of property is different. You try to apply one ordinance to it, you have to be able to adapt. And while these alternatives exist, it's important to note that staff is bound by the code to ensure that when approved, the ultimate approved plan is not less than a plan that strictly complies with the ordinance. That language is in the current code. Additional flexibility is built into the ordinance with some of these additional items, which include giving credit for existing trees, reductions for small sites, and also being able to limb up trees. That helps with safety for both pedestrians and cars, but also for visibility from the streets to our businesses. Lastly, with respect to the two previous land use cases, as you'll remember, for the commercial business on Jamestown Road, this was approved by the board in September of 2021, and required landscaping still needs to be installed. The basis for required landscaping on those approved plans included 3 elements. First, meeting the ordinance minimums. Second, in consideration of the board approving the rezoning, a voluntary proffer was made to remove all of the impervious cover within the CCC buffer and to replant that area. And then largely there was a big area for Chesapeake Bay mitigation for an encroachment into the RPA. Based on previous inquiries, we've let the applicant know that only the board may amend adopted proffers, and staff has shared several options on ways to mitigate the impacts to the RPA, some different alternatives for them to consider. I think there were 5. For the commercial light industrial use on Fenton Mill Road, again, this was approved by the board back in August of 2008, and required landscaping still needs to be installed. Basis for the required landscaping on those approved plans including two elements. One, meeting the minimum code requirements, and two, there were adopted SUP conditions to provide additional screening effects for the outdoor storage of materials and the large equipment on the rural area outside of the PSA. Based on previous inquiries, we've let the applicant know that only the board may amend adopted SUP conditions. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
No, thank you. I want a full disclosure. We got this yesterday, and so I did look it over, but I'm going to take additional time to look it over. And I appreciate it because one thing I want to be clear on is I believe in landscaping and trees. And I do appreciate the way that our county looks. What I want to make sure that we're doing, I have a particular business in my district that I'm sure had to do, it was rezoning, and now it's kind of overgrown and there's just a lot. So was it appropriate for that spot? And then, you mentioned another business that I have been, it is not in my district any longer, it was. But I think that also is where kind of the push and the pull comes because it's a rezoning. If someone had come in and opened a business that we may not have necessarily fit in with the character around, they probably wouldn't have had to do that same type of landscaping.
Proffer would not have kicked in.
Right. And so that's where I think it does get tough for a business sometimes, especially one that's starting, because landscaping is very expensive. And depending on when you're opening, sometimes you can do landscaping, you can have a lot of things that don't make it. And depending on what type of work that you have or guarantee you have lined up with your landscaper, gets into all of that. So those were a few of the reasons that I was inquiring about our landscape ordinance, and I really appreciate all this information, and we'll probably have additional questions, but got it late last night, and then so thank you.
So, Mr. Holt, the other properties in my district, and I've talked to you about that a couple times, and I just think where it is, Fenton Mill, everything out there's A1, it's low residential and so forth, and the owner of the property, who I've spoken to many times, I mean, is willing to put more things along the road, and most of that's covered already, but it just seems, he counted it up and he said, there are 300 more shrubs they want me to put in. And I don't know, and you guys asked that he just do it again and put it back into you guys, but I'm wondering how much is too much, especially when you're talking about side property lines, going back into an agricultural area where there's already trees, there's already everything. I just think we're putting a really hard ask for something that's out in the middle of nowhere, okay? I've been down the street, I've been over there a couple times. I just think, okay, put a few more along that, facing it on the right-hand side. He realizes that more stuff needs to go there. The left side is a berm, and from there you can't see much of anything, and yet it's looking like he needs to put more stuff in there. I just...
So can I ask a quick follow-up to that? Because you said twice during your presentation, someone can come to only the board
Yeah, only the...
can
Change
amend.
adopted conditions.
So can that person come to the board to say, can you amend this?
With a new
for me?
plan?
They would need to, and that'd be the only way we could change. So that plan in particular, for example, You know, there's 447 feet of road frontage. Based on the adopted SUP conditions, the site plan that was approved along that whole frontage called for 54 trees and 162 shrubs. And so, you know, as part of an amended application, staff could relook at that, determine what the baseline is based on the minimum code that's in effect today, and then figure out the difference between that and what was shown on the approved plan. You know, at least at the time, back in that 2007 timeframe, 2008 timeframe, you know, it's important for the board to screen that business from the road. And the plantings that were shown on that approved plan are only along the road frontage. There aren't any that go down the side or rear property lines. And you're right, the whole sort of right-hand side of that property is all RPA and is protected anyway. So it would definitely give the applicant a really good place to start. Let's figure out what the new baseline is based on the 2025 code, and then figure out what would need to be amended by the board in terms of that additional SUP condition.
Okay, so he does need to come back to you, and I think he understands that part.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anything, you know, anything that the currently adopted SUP that he would like relief from, only the board could change that, and we could help get that
Okay.
packaged up into a staff report for consideration through the public
Thank you.
hearing process.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Mr. Holt, I think you know that I've been working with a group of staff and volunteers on trying to develop a tree program for the county. And I think one of the things that we're seeing is that the most important aspect of this kind of a policy, if you're trying to do something to increase tree canopy, to accomplish other positive goals like reduction of heat islands in the pervious cover, and things like preventing erosion of stream beds. That what you really need to do is have a set of requirements, but also incentives. And I think that if there are ways to address individual concerns through consideration of proper amendments, that's fine. I hope that maybe in the spring we'll have some, based on the discussions we've been having with other communities that have been doing tree programs of one kind or another, maybe have some innovative ideas about what else we might consider as options for folks in contributing to the tree population of James City, or protecting existing trees. You know, I think one of the things that I'm sort of interested in pursuing is the idea that as we think about trees in the county, one of the things that we can do is not just try to replant trees in various situations where it may or may not work very effectively, but even just having a concerted effort to address trees that are endangered by invasive vines that choke them off and result in eventually them deadening and not really providing any benefit to the area in which they live. So I guess I'm just saying that we might want to think about revisiting the landscape ordinance itself sometime in the spring as this work group gets a little bit more deeply into the issue.
Got a few things. We'll have to be careful because it can be a slippery slope. If I want to cut a tree down on my property, I'm gonna cut a tree down. You know, but it may be different for in a neighborhood. If somebody wants to cut a tree down, you know, being tighter. So we got to look at the difference in rural and urban areas and figure that out. I'm all for trees and all that, and I think we've got a beautiful community, but sometimes we have too much in trees. And one thing it's always been frustrating to me is we'll have a commercial piece of property, and we'll say, okay, you got to plant so much in front of the property. Well, it blocks a view of the property. I think we need to have the trees in there, some of them, but then also it grows up in the power lines and then they get all chopped off. Or if they don't get chopped off, the fire department has got 10,000 hours clearing ice storms that trees have been put there and they're in the power lines or in the roads and everything else. So we've got to figure out a balance between them and what maybe trees work better than others. And, you know, I know when I changed my property to commercial, which it was always been used as commercial, but brought it up to the standards, and the houses are lined up, there's a house, and the warehouse behind it. Well, I had to put plantings in front of the warehouse so that the house I own couldn't see the foundation. And then I had to put plantings in front of that foundation so the house I owned couldn't see that foundation. And then I had to put it in front of that one so you couldn't see it from the street. And I'm like, well, I own all of them. I'm the one that's gonna be looking at them. And I gotta put plants up and spend money so that I can't see my property from my other property. So, you know, and that's just an example. And, but you know, those are the things that I think we have to give staff a little bit more, maybe control of some of that to go, hey, what works better? You know, is it better to cluster these things in an area and it still meets what we're asking for? And or is it better to plant in this area instead of, you know, if we plant underneath a power line, maybe we back it up 20 feet or something to get out of the power line and that sort of thing. And I think it's almost a lot by lot decision. And sometimes we get so hung up on a tree. Well, a tree's just like corn. I mean, it's a product that you utilize and use. If it wasn't for cutting trees down, we wouldn't be living in any houses. So we've got to kind of balance the two out. And I understand John's thought as far as, you know, where the earth is warming and you need the trees. And I agree with that and trying to find that balance. And I won't be on the board when y'all make that decision, but I might be out there complaining about it.
Mercy.
No, I'm not, just kidding y'all. So it's going to be a tough balance to try to figure out how much is too much, how much is not enough. But when you go through James City County and look at what's been done and look how pretty the county is from y'all's work compared to other communities, we're way above a lot of the communities out there. So what we've been doing is really moving in the right direction, but we want to make sure we don't go over that and start infringing on the rights of, you know, people who own these trees and, you know, and that's their tree. And if they want to cut it down for firewood, well, you know what? Put it in the stove and let's go. So that's just my 2 cents. Yes, ma'am.
I don't disagree, and I think that's where I find the push and the pull, because if you have a commercial business that switches over from, you know, it was a landscape, say, and then it could then be a tire company, nothing wrong, we all need tires.
Right,
But they don't have to do anything.
right.
But if somebody comes in with another type of business, say a retail, and then they have to put in hundreds of trees,
Not fair.
that's not, there's gotta be some
balance.
sort of balance.
It does.
So, you know, and I know that's difficult, and then take it piece by piece. You're gonna have to hire a lot more people if that's the case. So I think looking at it holistically, as John has talked about, I think is a good idea. But I do appreciate this very comprehensive look.
Thank you for the information.
Yes.
Okay, number 5 is our 2026 legislative agenda. Adam Kinsman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. What we have before you is your proposed 2026 legislative program. The legislative program is built on a year-to-year basis. Basically, the day that you adopt your plan, I open up a new folder in my email and I just slide over every request that comes from the board and or staff over that next year into that folder, and then build it into your next year's program while eliminating those items that may have become outdated after time, and then bring it to you for a resolution of approval. This year we have a few new items that came from the board and staff, and some that have carried over from previous years. You'll see it's sort of divided into 2 parts. one that's all caps are more of an action item, and the rest of it are more positional statements. The first one that's new on your list this year is to repeal Virginia Code Section 58-138-18C to allow James City County to enact an admissions tax. We are one of the very few counties that are not allowed to do an admissions tax, and that's because of the tourism tax that's in another section of the Virginia Code. The second one is to amend the Virginia Code to amend the way we advertise real estate reassessments. This is something that VACO and Roanoke are working on right now. I was asked to put that on there so that we could account for inflation. Number 3 is a carryover from last year, and that is to amend the code to extend the 40-foot no contact rule at vote centers to include the entire building, not just the entrances. If you've been over at the vote center, it is kind of ridiculous. We have little arcs around the doors. It'd be a lot easier to just draw 40 feet around the building. That's something that was asked for by our registrar. Number 4, fully remove the spending cap on school support positions. That's a carryover from last year. Number 5, remove language from the budget that modifies the distribution between Commonwealth and localities of excess fees collected by clerks of the court. That was asked by the clerk of the court. Again, that was by Ms. O'Connor. That was last year. I believe that actually went before the General Assembly. It didn't make it, but the clerks of the court, their lobbyists are carrying that one. So we have that in there. That would result in extra funds to the county. And then really the last all new one is number 6 on deed theft. I believe Mr. McGlennon brought that one up, and that we support legislation to combat that growing crime. That's something that the General Assembly established a work group last year at its session, and I do expect they'll come out with something this year. And so we just kind of made it a dual, mostly a positional statement. The way we use this legislative program, as everybody knows, we have a lobbyist. They ask at the beginning of the year what we'd like to support and not support. We also pass this along to our legislators after it's done, and it helps me out. I'm the one that works with VML, VACO, and our lobbyists when they ask, how does the board feel about these things, this particular issue, then I can go back to this program and look at it. And then we have a resolution for you to adopt. At one General Assembly, they asked if it was adopted by the board or not, and that one hadn't, and since then we adopt a resolution saying that's the official board position. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have and about anything that's on here, and look for you to adopt a resolution if it's satisfactory.
So is this essentially, we will do a resolution adopting this at our at a regular meeting, or?
I believe that's in your packet today.
It's in the packet today?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we can actually take action on that one
Yes, sir.
today. Okay. I would comment that I received a letter that went to the city as well, and they sent a copy to me. And it was a citizen concerned with the deed theft issue, and I know I've raised it before, and it just seems like it would be something we really need to push the General Assembly to adopt some sort of notification so that whenever something is changed or submitted, that at least the registered owner is made aware of it. So that I think that would be something really beneficial.
I haven't seen what's come out of that work group. For those that aren't familiar, for larger pieces of legislation or bigger issues like that, the General Assembly in one session will say, we'll send it to a work group, and then they work throughout the summer, come up with something, and then a legislator will pick that up and put it in the General Assembly. I haven't seen what's come out of that work group. I've heard it's going to have something to do with notaries and something on the clerk side, which makes sense, versus the localities. We don't really have anything to do with recordation. So I'll certainly keep the board up to date on what comes out of there.
I would also note that the where was it? Number 2, to take inflation into account. This has been I'm chair of the I guess it's Finance and Elections Committee this time. It's in our committee, and Roanoke has brought it forward. There were some concerns when it was first brought forward that they went back and what we're addressing, and so it's on our agenda for up at VACO, and we will. I think we will probably get some sort of policy or legislative agenda item approved by VACO related to this. So, and then the only other thing I had was I was at the Williams the mayors and chairs yesterday, and one of the proposals that I hear that one of the jurisdictions is bringing forward is to have the General Assembly provide for the ability to have some of the video, speed camera video reviews that's done by police right now, to be able to see if they can set it up to where they can hire a technician to do that. I don't know what's going to be involved in the legalities of that, but that would be a tremendous savings in our police manpower if we could do that. So I'll try to figure out who's doing that and see if we can find out a little more about it and maybe get on board with it. But
And again, I work with our lobbyists throughout the year, and that's something that I can put on our agenda just to keep a watch list. I think I forward that to you every year. I tell them certain subjects that we're in which we're interested, and then James City County specific bills, and they just give us a list and we can click through and watch those as they occur. So I'll include that.
Is there a way to take our list and compare it to others and add a thing in there that says also supported by York County or Roanoke, or, kind of make it a little more power into it that says not only does James City County want it, but another community, rather than each one of us being an individual with this, maybe we can group them together and say supported by other communities. Maybe it'll carry a little bit more.
Something that would probably take a little bit more effort than just right now. Everybody does their legislative agenda a little bit differently at a different time. Like I think the City of Williamsburg might have already done theirs. They do it like a month or two before us. We can move the dates around and try to get a little bit more regional approach to it. And that's something I can work on next year.
Mr. Chairman, I certainly think we can look at other legislative agendas before we have our meeting with legislators and say, this is ours, but also neighboring localities have something similar in their program. So because to Adam's point, they are bringing it together like we're doing today and having those conversations. To coordinate all that and the adoption of them, I think would be difficult. But to take the end of it and say, all these localities have something similar, or these other, I think that certainly would play well when we're talking with our state delegation.
We do have, always have the VML VACO legislative programs and Coalition of High Growth Communities to look toward, to just add the idea that these are things that are of general interest, and then really we're focusing also on things that are specifically James City County oriented.
That one in particular is very helpful to me because VML and VACO will often seek the advice of local practitioners as to how do you think this would work for you or whatever, and I don't feel bad about doing that because that's what's on here, and I know it ends up being for the good of the county.
I'd like to see the one here on impact fees because that's really big. And that's where we can make some money and make sure that things are done correctly. Having been on other planning commissions, that's one of the big things that we always discussed. You can't come in here and put in 300 houses and not put on sidewalks and lights and everything, for the people. So I think when I heard that we couldn't do that, I thought that's crazy. We need to say, this is your impact, a new school, this and this and this. So that's a good one.
The current impact fee ordinance is almost unworkable.
I know.
Not many localities use it. It's mostly for roadways, and we've encouraged them every year to allow us to use that a little bit more efficiently, and so far that hadn't been picked up.
This is what you're going to cost us.
Yes.
Thank you, and you're going to pay it up front.
Mr. Chair, to your earlier question, Mr. Kinsman does have a resolution. We put it under board discussions, but if you were ready to adopt it, it would probably help him to have it. Or if you want to delay it to the next meeting, we can bring it to the next meeting.
But we got the resolution here for everybody's comfortable. I'll look for a motion.
I'd move to approve the legislative package.
I had a couple of comments first, but let's move the resolution. One, I think the lobbyists are going to have to be on it this year because, we just talked about speed cameras, and last year you'll remember there was a move that money not go to the locality, that it go to, I believe, VDOT, or I think it was VDOT. So, which to me, the point of speed cameras is to be able to make, especially in school zones, is to be able to make improvements to said school zones if needed. So there's a couple that we're just really going to have to stay in front of. Notice how I snapped. And one that I wish and am sad that it did not get capitalization is about the increased funds for local road improvements. And, my daughter got this check. It was as part of the approximately $9 billion in tax relief provided to Virginians, which I appreciate. It was a check for $200, and she earns her own living, so it wouldn't have been. However, when we are not fully funding schools on the state level, we are not giving VDOT enough money to operate, to get things done. It is the land of the orange cones, and several other things. I just have a real issue understanding that $200 is a lot of money and can make a difference to people. There are things that this Commonwealth of Virginia is simply not doing their responsibility of. And so I wish they would pay all their bills due and then send out a tax relief check. And so that would be my request moving forward. I don't know that they're listening, but just in case. But I really do feel like that we are just not addressing their road issues enough. And whether it takes an additional, the additional revenue that you're talking about, but, there's just things we've just got to address. And localities are stepping in and spending on schools because the Commonwealth is still, I think, at 2009 levels. There's just things that I just hope that attention is being paid to this legislative program, and I hope that our lobbyists will do everything they can do to fight for that. So, thank you.
A motion on the floor. Mr. Stevens, call the roll, please.
Mr. Glennon?
Aye.
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Alrighty, our next is the Government Center update. Mr. Brad Reinhammer.
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman, board members, Mr. Stevens, Mr. Kinsman. I'm here to give you my monthly update on the Government Center. We continue to work with a variety of different groups, employee groups, builder groups, on the outdoor space and some of the things that we're trying to accomplish for use for employees and for the public. We're hopeful that'll be a very nice, usable, comfortable space for everyone. We're also started going through the value engineering process with the library edition, trying to get the cost of the library down, working with Ms. Towers and the library staff, along with the architects and builders on that. I spoke with each of you last week about the use of solar panels on the roof of the building. We are moving forward with that. We're going to be negotiating a contract with Dominion over the course of the lifespan of those solar panels. It would save the county right around $500,000, and primarily not visible from anyone other than the people that are in the third floor of the Government Center. They'd be able to see the ones on the second floor of the EOC space. But to me, it's just as nice to see the solar panels would be to see the roof there. So don't think, not really any downside to that. Dominion pays for all the installation. They take them down at the end of the 25 years, replace them with new ones if we want to continue to do it. But it will save the county a good amount of money. And solar, so there's a lot of other savings that come with that. You all approved at your last board meeting the early site work package. You authorized Mr. Stevens to enter into that agreement. We are still working through some of the details on that early site work package agreement. We hope to have that done this week and ready for Mr. Stevens' signature. We just had it. I think it was at 1:30. They're probably still meeting. The stormwater folks working with the contractors and others on a pre-construction meeting for stormwater over at the site. They moved it indoors though because of the weather, so they're having that at the rec center. Just really explaining to the contractors everything that's going to be required with stormwater to make sure they understand very clearly what can be done, what can't be done, and the way things should be done. Still working on a couple Dominion issues on the site. We did have one section, the skate park light has been decommissioned, that pole taken down. We still do have a couple overhead wires running across Depew that Dominion still has to get taken down. So hopefully we'll get that done this week as well. The skate park is closed, closed on Sunday. So shouldn't see any folks over there. And we are currently working on the finer details of a small groundbreaking ceremony that we should be having in November, and certainly more information coming on that. Otherwise, we're moving along, still meeting, a lot going on. As the builders have said to me, get ready because we're going to be moving fast. It's just a lot going on. So be happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
At that skate park, I saw a couple of different people really, I'm not a skater. I know how surprised you must be, but, but to the people that it really meant a lot. And so want to acknowledge that, and I know there's plans and there's been meetings about there be one at War Hill, I believe, the War Hill site. But it really provided, it seemed like a place of gathering. And so I just want to acknowledge that I've seen that and certainly look forward to what is built eventually, and appreciate the efforts that are going into doing something new out at the War Hill site for that. Just as a reminder, you're available to speak to people. People can email you or call you regarding, as I was sharing with a colleague before the meeting, I understand that people may not be in agreement about a government center. What I do not like is that with not dealing with facts. And we can disagree, but we need to all have, in my opinion, we need to at least be truthful with facts. So I've said that you're willing to talk to people and share the information that you have, and I just want to make sure that that's something you're still willing to do.
Absolutely. I spoke to a gentleman earlier today on the phone who called and had some questions. My office phone number is 253-6616. I'm happy to talk to anybody. I've made the offer numerous times. I'll come and meet you anywhere you like and talk to you about the government center. Again, we may not agree on whether it's really needed or not, but I want you to make that decision based on having all the facts and not things you might see on social media. And just in regard to the skate park comment too, I did want to throw out there, we've had them come and speak to the board previously. I've met with them, given them my information. I think they're very excited. The skate park that was there was 25 years old. And skating has changed, the types of things they want to do there and other things. So I think this is really a good opportunity to provide a much better skate park for those folks. And I think while it's going to hurt for a little while while this one's closed before the new one gets constructed, I think in the end they'll have a much better facility to use.
I will note that I was invited out to when they had a summer camp out there for kids, and met with a lot of the organizers and a lot of the kids, and it's extremely popular. And I got very clear a message that they were really appreciative of the fact that we're moving forward with a new one over at War Hill, and I think they're looking forward to that. So it's unfortunate that there's going to be a bit of a gap, but that's I think they're going to have a much better facility when we get all done.
And I remember actually the night that the boardroom was packed with youngsters who were here to petition the board for support for this skate park. And I think it was a great lesson for them about how their voice could make an impact on decisions that the county made. That was great, and glad to see that the facility is that will allow it to modernize, adapted to the current skaters. I also did want to we were talking about trees here, and I just wanted to have you reinforce the fact that I know some people have suggested that the site that we're going to be utilizing for the government center has a lot of trees on it. But my understanding is that those trees are almost exclusively pines that were planted just a relatively short time ago when the water tower came down, when the skate park was built and so forth, and not hardwoods that would be more likely to be the kinds of trees that we would be looking to replace.
That is true. Most of the trees on site are pine. If you go back in the county's map system, you can see in the mid-'80s when there were no trees on that site at all. And the trees were planted then, and that's what we see today, but it is almost entirely pine.
Thank you.
I remember when that was nothing but fields, and I used to help Mr. Greenleaf hay those fields owned by the Eastern State. And we hayed all those fields before there was a tree there. So the trees are fairly new for the community, and it's all pine, so it's not like there's a ton of wildlife hiding in a bunch of pine trees. They need other trees as well in order to have that, but I do, when people worry about trees and what goes on with them, taking them down, that is a concern, but, this will benefit the community and we'll plant some beautiful trees around the property as we finish it.
And there will still be trees.
Yes.
There's the buffer requirements through planning and that we have to comply with, so there will be a tree buffer around the edges where the trees are currently existing, so you'll still have that there.
Thank you.
Go to board considerations. Our number one board consideration is contract award, $823,162, James City County Court Support Building HVAC replacement. And Mr. Abbott, going to give us the staff presentation?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Stevens. The HVAC system at the Court Support Building has reached the end of its useful life and requires full replacement. This project implements recommendations from a recent mechanical engineering capacity and distribution analysis to improve system performance and energy efficiency. The scope of the work includes removal of the existing HVAC equipment, installation of 4 new rooftop units, and upgrades to the duct distribution system and control components to ensure proper airflow, humidity, and temperature regulation. The replacement will provide a more reliable and efficient HVAC system that meets current standards for energy performance and occupant comfort. Project work will be carefully scheduled to minimize disruption to ongoing court support operations. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I ask, how many bids did you get? That's a lot of money.
So we are utilizing our annual contract for HVAC equipment and installations awarded to ABM.
Questions? If we don't have any.
Need to move to motion?
Look for the board for discussion and or motion if you're ready.
I'll move that.
Okay, so we have a motion. Mr. Stevens, call the roll.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. The next is James City County branding changes, and Mr. Stevens will do the introduction of staff here.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, as Meg Finney, our graphic designer, comes forward, I'll let her get at the podium and get set up. I would like to say, we have our logo we've had for a number of years. I felt the need that we ought to reintroduce the seal. I'd heard a lot of good things about the seal we had previously. Ms. Finney sort of updated that for us. We had some discussions with you in September, some modifications, some other thoughts and ideas. So she has been through a number of iterations, and she's going to talk about the top 3. We did go to our department head group and just sort of get their opinion. We have a few to share with you. For me, there's no requirement for you to feel rushed to adopt the seal today. So if you like something, I'd like for you to, we would sort of incorporate that with the 250th and things that are coming up and our government center. But I don't want you to feel like you have to do it. If it's something that you think represents the county well and you like, great. If you want us to go through a longer process, we could do that and take a total redesign of it. That will just take more time to do that. So I just don't want you to feel pressure to do it, other than I believe we ought to have a seal. The logo certainly has a place for the county going forward. I think a seal, an updated version or a different version would serve us well into the future as well. So that I'll turn it over to Ms. Finney.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Meg Finney, graphic designer at James City County. I work in county administration in the communications suite. I wanted to start by thanking the board for their feedback on the proposed county seal at our last meeting on September 23rd, and for your time today as we take a look at 3 revised concepts based on that feedback. Before I get into the new concepts, I wanted to reiterate the intent of the seal, which is to complement and align with our brand while looking formal and official. It would not replace the current county logo, but work in harmony with it. The proposed seal strengthens the county's brand, giving us an option for official communications, board materials, and other situations where a seal may be more appropriate. On September 23rd, I presented a concept for the proposed county seal for feedback from the board. I learned that you were hoping for a more vibrant color palette for the seal. I took these comments and prepared several new iterations, which were then presented to county staff for their thoughts. Staff voted for their favorite options, and we narrowed down the designs to 3 concepts that received the most votes. Here you can see an overview of the 3 winning concepts with the previous draft underneath for comparison. All 3 options use a vivid sky blue in the background. 2 of the designs swap the outer ring colors as well to add even more color to the design. Here you can see the previous draft alongside seals and logos from other localities in the area. The design utilizes a gray background that keeps the red, green, and blue in balance. Concept A, with its blue sky, is much brighter. The white ring around the edge breaks up the space for a clean, professional look that complements the more detailed interior. Concept B brings the green from the ship's flags into the outer ring to improve the balance between red, green, and blue. The resulting contrast causes the ship sails and text to stand out in a way that's pleasing to the eye. Concept C is similar to B, but the red from the ship is brought to the outer rings instead. The stripes on the ring call back to the stripes on the ships and waves, tying the different elements of the design together. Oh, my apologies about that. I will go back. Jason, do you mind going back just a couple for me, please? There you go, thank you. Here are all 3 concepts together again. I'm grateful for the opportunity to present these updated designs. I enjoyed working on the new iterations for the proposed seal, and I'm happy to answer any questions or hear any of your comments on the new designs.
Everybody at once.
I like concept A. I think it's clean, clear. The others I like. I'd go with A as 1, and then C would be 2, and B would be the 3rd. But A just seems to be such very clear, and with the colors on the others, it kind of gives it a little more busier look, where I think A is more of a crisp look. And so I like concept A very much.
I'll throw my 2 cents in, and I can agree with you. I think that the big thing for me is that changing from the gray background to the blue background really pops the ship out and makes it much more appropriate. Again, I could go with any of the 3, but I do prefer the A. I think it's cleaner, simpler, and that would be my preference. But if the board leans toward one of the others, I'm not going to stand in the way. I think we need to hear from everybody and see what you think.
I prefer C, but that's
Okay.
me. C or A, but not the green one.
I do like B. I like it because it picks up the green from the flags that are in our logo, but I'm not dying on a hill, so.
Me neither.
Yeah. Again, I like all 3 of them. I think they're really a good expression of the county, and as you always do, you've captured what we're trying to accomplish pretty well in all of them. And these are kind of subtle differences from my perspective. I guess I would lean toward A, but I like anything green because it's St. Patrick. But that would be, I think, where I'd be.
Well, we left the resolution for you to consider. The only thing we would need, if you're inclined to make a motion to approve one of them, would be which concept. So that was, the resolution is there in your package to approve, but the concept was left blank.
I think we've got several of us who like A, but I wanted to make sure that we're not riding roughshod over anybody's preferences on that.
You okay? Everybody? I'm good with that.
I think we have settled on A.
Excellent.
Sure, you can get a motion and let the board.
We'll do
Which did staff like this?
It was pretty well divided between the 3 of these, I think, but I think A was the one that was like more towards the top.
All right, motion for approval, concept A.
a motion for approval. Mr. Stevens, call the roll, please.
Mr. Hippel,
Aye.
Ms. Larson,
Abstain?
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Fanning. We appreciate all the hard work in that.
Yes,
I-
thank
Yes,
you.
thank
Thank
you.
you for bringing something
Thanks,
back.
Meg.
Yeah. I think it really did make it more attractive to us, so. Okay, we are now to board requests and directives.
I'm good.
Attended Halloween with Heroes at the police station. So much fun. Mr. McLennan showed up. They had over 2,000 people there, and it was wonderful.
Best.
And it was set up a little differently than before because War Hill was having a football game the same night, so the poor police had to keep taking groups of people across the street and all that. But it was very well attended, and people love that, and I think it's just a great thing we do every year. That's it.
A few things, if I could. I attended the State of Greater Williamsburg at Colonial Heritage, which was very, very informative. Had a chief economist, sorry, golly, could not get the words out there, who did a very good job talking about what is going on nationally and with home prices and just real informative. Dan Roberts spoke, who works for the Virginia Tourism Corporation, about tourism and good things that are happening. And then the new dean for William and Mary School of Computing, Data Scientists, and Physics spoke about AI. And it was just really interesting trying to talk about, like there's been this push to not teach kids about AI, but you've got to teach kids about AI because it's the future and just balancing all of that. So it was just a good event and put on by the chamber. So, and also one of the major sponsors, Kongsberg. So glad to see them really integrating themselves into the community. Also went to Stars, Stripes, and Strategy of the EA 215 briefing that was put on by the chamber and Visit Williamsburg, and lots of different organizations there, including James City County, talking about our 250th. But it was an event that we thought we were going to have 150 people attend. We had 225. And people that I had not seen before at an event, learning about the 250th and what that meant to our area. And that was hosted by Christy Coleman at Jamestown, and it was just excellent. So hope there's more. We really want to get the community involved in the 250th and what that's going to mean, and welcoming to the guests that we expect that will come here to visit and learn about that commemoration. So that was really good. I did miss some events last week. My mom had a health emergency, and I want to take a minute to thank York County. She's a James City County resident, but because of her proximity to York County, they do mutual aid with us. And they did an excellent job of getting her to Doctor's Hospital, who did an excellent job of caring for her. And then she was transferred to Newport News Regional. But I also want to thank Chief Ash, and he knows what for. And so I missed some things. And one of those that I missed was the Patriot beam signing. And I'm sorry, Patriots Colony beam signing. I'm sorry I missed out on that because they are expanding. We went to their groundbreaking. And I look forward to their continued investment in our community. I think Mr. Stevens was there. I saw that on your Friday notes. But there's probably other things that I missed because of that. But I'm glad I was with my mom, and I'm glad that my mom is on the road to recovery. So she's a tough old bird. So, and then on Saturday, I participated in the Alzheimer's Walk along with our James City County team. Mr. Reinheimer and his wife Rhonda were there. Chief was there. We had people from social services. We had people from the police department. And we were a team of, I think, 34, 35 strong. And we reached our fundraising goal thanks to a lot of people that are in this room that were very generous. When I sent out an email late Friday afternoon saying we were 88% of the way to our goal, I think. And we ended up making our goal, and I really appreciate those of you that helped get us there. And in fact, we went over a little bit, and I had several employees reach out to me that couldn't participate, that said, hey, I had this relative that was impacted, and I said those names as we did our walk. And we're gonna, and we talked on Saturday, we're gonna do it again next year. We're gonna come back bigger and better T-shirts so we can identify one another, not just with our purple shirts, but with James City County shirts. But I just wanna say a huge thank you, because thank you, Mr. Stevens, for supporting the effort to get the word out to all employees. But I think I think they wanted to participate, because to have a team that size and sort of coming in towards the end like we did, I just was really proud of James City County and Newtown. That's where we do the walk, and thank them as well for hosting it, and Alzheimer's Association for everything that they do. So, thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you for organizing the team and being so successful in the first go-round of a James City County team. So I think it's just wonderful. I had a couple opportunities to do some things. I won't talk about all of them, but a couple that I just want to highlight. James River Elementary was the site of one of the sessions for reading to second graders, and I went in and read We the Kids, which introduced them to the preamble of the Constitution, which was just great. And I think they were probably a little exhausted from having just come in from recess, but they all paid attention. It was nice that they were all calm and ready to fall asleep. And then I had a couple of other opportunities. I went to, and I know Mr. Stevens was there and other staff, Mr. Holt and so forth, to the Hampton Roads State of Transit, which was very interesting and kind of challenged, because we find that more and more for the Hampton Roads residents are coming to utilize and rely on public transit. And obviously, like everything else, the funding is a challenge, but they are doing some very innovative things, and our WADA system is very, very much a part of that. So I appreciate the invitation to attend, and found it to be a very interesting and useful session. I also wanted to say that I had a chance to chat with Jason Thornton, who is the director of Literacy for Life, and they have experienced a cut in their federal funding, which has been quite important to them over the years. Their budget is down about 20% as a result of a cut. And while they are obviously trying to figure out ways to plug holes in their budget and figure out some things, we did talk about whether there were any opportunities for us to contribute to that in some form. And so I'll talk to the county administrator about where we stand with our funding levels, and thinking forward to next year, we might be in a position to say that whether for Literacy for Life or the other social service providers that do things that the county otherwise might have to do, and do it very effectively, that might be something we want to think about next year. And on that subject, it's very clear to me that there are growing needs, some short-term perhaps, hopefully, some longer-term, for food, to meet the nutritional needs of children and their parents and families, whether it's folks who are at a very low level of income who depend on the SNAP program, which we don't know how long funding for that will hold out, or whether they are folks who've perhaps lost their jobs with the federal government or been furloughed by the federal government. There are just some real pressures right now at the very time, of course, that the national government has also reduced the amount of funding available for food programs. So Ms. Larson talked about the check that her daughter received, and I was thinking, you know, that yeah, my household also received a check for both of us in the household, and that we certainly are in a position where we could afford to and can think about taking all or a good part of that tax rebate to contribute to our local food banks, Grove Christian Outreach Center, the Virginia Peninsula Food Bank, House of Mercy, Fish, and others, to help them help our citizens get through this particular time period. Yesterday, I also attended the Old Town Medical Board of Directors meeting. And while we didn't focus on this particular topic, it did get me thinking about the fact that if there is nothing done about providing the tax credits that allowed people who earn more money than would allow them to get Medicaid, but not enough to be able to buy health insurance, those tax credits that they have received have made health care costs more affordable. But we don't know whether those are going to continue, and as a result, I would anticipate that many people will be looking for clinics like Old Town, which accept payment on a sliding scale, or a Lackey-free clinic, which is, as its name suggests, a free clinic, that could have, again, an impact on agencies that we rely on to meet the needs of our citizens. So I just hope folks will think about those and consider the possibility of helping our neighbors to meet tough times. Thank you.
Really, the only one I've been involved in was yesterday, and it was mayors and chairs, and we had a pretty good turnout, considering that we had a lot of them. Like our county administrator was down at the ICMA conference, but we had a good spirited discussion, and I said, like, some of the ideas that I mentioned earlier about the speed cameras and using technicians was one of the things that came up in discussions. So it's beneficial to get together with our compatriots in the adjoining jurisdictions and talk about some of these issues on a regular basis. And that was very important.
Did they discuss school bus cameras as well, using
No,
technicians?
Yeah, what they were talking, they didn't talk about necessarily school bus. The thing that was mentioned was that they were, apparently there's one of the jurisdictions is putting in their legislative agenda to try to get speed camera, and which would be like ours would be school zone speed cameras, so that they didn't have to tie up so much of the manpower of the police department in reviewing those. And I don't know how they're approaching it, whether they will say, all right, we'll have a technician, and then if it does have to go to a legal action or whatever, then it has to be reviewed. So it's sort of a screening process to help reduce their dependence on
Right.
Uniformed police officers.
Because
for it.
our police have to look at the school bus,
Yep.
people that run past the school bus
Yep.
stop arm, which can be, I imagine, quite costly manpower-wise as well. I would hope they would add that to their, but
That, and I participated in a call with VACO staff on getting ready for the Finance and Elections Committee meeting. So we have our draft agenda set up for that, and it'll be an interesting discussion. We have, as usual, Mr. Jim Regenball will be coming to give us a presentation, and I've been asked to moderate that one, so it's always something I look forward to, seeing what he projects for the state. That was pretty much it for me.
Mr. Chairman.
I was going to say, I did survive 12 days on my own. My wife got to go visit my daughter in Brussels, and it left me with the 3 dogs. So, but I was closely supervised by my younger daughter. So,
You know, going off what John was talking about earlier and in the community and how much they need, what if we were to do, this group and our employees and all, what if we were to do a fill the dais and take this area up front, and before our next meeting, bring in canned foods and goods and all that and fill this area, but not only do it for us, but put it out to the other board members in other communities and say, hey, look, we're doing a challenge here in James City County, and we're gonna fill the dais. And, you know, have everybody bring whatever they can bring, and we put it up here for and make sure we fill this for our next meeting. And challenge the other boards in our communities and say, you know, and we'll try to fill this area up here full of food so that we can give it to the community and put it out to other, you know, board members as well, and city council or anybody else that would, you know, like to take on the challenge. And maybe we can make a little dent in the community with a start there.
Well, thank you for taking that on.
Yeah. Not a problem.
I'm willing to take that challenge.
See, I always do that.
I'll give you this section right. But would that be something we want to?
Sure.
Sure.
great idea.
Yeah.
You're talking the 12th.
And if you bring cans, we can have it as a fortress protecting us.
Yeah, we can have them, yeah. that's right.
You wouldn't be
I
able to
need
go
it.
through the
Make
I
sure
don't know
no
why
one
I'm
picks them
laughing.
up and throws them at us.
Well, I will tell you that I normally do a donation every month to the Salvation Army, and when I go over there, the need is just accelerating.
Yes.
It's critical, and anything we as a community can do to try to help address some of that, I think I'd be totally behind. So, all right. We are
Thank you,
now
John.
to report to the county administrator.
Chair, members of the board, just a couple items. It is Halloween again, and while we don't officially acknowledge that in terms of a county holiday, we do try to provide some guidelines to our community. For those that do want to trick or treat, we have suggested 6 to 8 p.m. in the evening, so those that want to participate, as well as households that would like to receive them. If you're a household that would like to receive them, we're talking about turn on your porch lights. If you don't want to receive children, then turn off your porch lights. That ought to be a good sign to those in and around the community. Police department does encourage safety, from thinking about the costume your children are in, to going with your children and supervising young children, older children, to go in groups together. Visibility, make sure children are aware that not everybody will be seeing them. They need to do their part of having lights and other things to increase visibility to drivers. And then really for our drivers to be on the lookout for trick-or-treaters. We certainly don't want what should be a really fun night out to turn into a tragic event. So just safety as those are out. I also want to mention our 2026 Park and Recreation Master Plan community meetings. We have 3 of those scheduled in November. Thursday, November 6th at 6:30, James River Elementary School. Thursday, November 13th at 6:30 p.m., James City County Recreation Center. And Wednesday, November 19th, at the James City County Library, and I'm sure that's on Croker Road as we're moving through the county. Leaf collection, it's also that time of year where leaves are falling off. Our Jolly Pond Convenience Center will begin accepting leaves at no charge November 1st through the end of January, so you have several months there to bring them to Jolly Pond at no charge. We'll also begin picking them up, as we've done in years past, by voting district, beginning in the Berkeley-Roberts District, December 1st through the 5th. Moving to the Jamestown and South Powhatan districts, December 8th through the 12th. Moving into the Stonehouse, North Powhatan districts, December 15th through the 17th. And then callbacks as needed the week of December 18th. So a lot going on the next couple of weeks for us as well. That's all I have, sir.
All right. May I have a motion to enter closed session for the following. Discussion of the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, and discussion of the terms or scope of such contract, where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to section 2.23711A29 of the Code of Virginia, and pertaining to the contract for the joint operation of the Williamsburg Regional Library System between York County, James City County, and the City of Williamsburg.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Mr. Stevens, call the roll, please.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. we will let everybody move and we'll go into close. We're back in open session, and may I have a motion to certify the closed session?
Mr. Chairman, I move to certify that we only spoke about those items we indicated would speak about going into closed session.
James, call a roll, please.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn till 5 PM on Wednesday, November 12th, 2025, for the regular meeting being held on Wednesday because of Veterans Day holiday.
She made the motion,
Oh, I'm sorry,
Barbara
we
did.
got the motion, I didn't hear it. Okay, thank you.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye. Okay, we are adjourned.